Good evening. It's Friday evening and it's gone 5:30. I'm Phil Oldershaw and I'm back with you for Real, Random and Raw every Friday, approximately 5:30 onwards. We've got an incredible guest for you this evening, but before we introduce this evening's guest, I'm going to introduce my partner in crime for Real, Random and Raw, and we'll make some noise for James Forrester in the house. James,
my apologies,
my friend.
My apologies. We are late because of me tonight. I do apologise.
Have you been playing bumper cars on your drive or something?
Oh, mate, as you know, the last few weeks we've talked about my new house, moving in, what's been going on.
Yes.
So I'm on a private estate of 12 houses, starting to get to meet the neighbours, socially distanced, of course. And as I've got home tonight, the neighbours that have moved in today have beached their car on the landscaping that's not been set. So I've done my best to push it out. The clutch is getting burnt out. I've put bread trays under the wheels, but this is a tow truck job. But at least I got to know the neighbours, so what can I say?
Oh, wow. Okay. And all at social distancing pace, just a nudge of the elbow, yes?
Well, maybe half an elbow.
So how's your week been? Rentals and real estate, how's it been looking for you?
Very stressful week, mate, this week, I have to admit. A lot of networking. Obviously, Boris did his announcement that we are going to be going back live, aren't we, to face-to-face. We can hug each other, shake hands, we can do networking, go to restaurants. Very positive news. We've seen that now in the property market. We've seen a huge bounce on it.
Yes.
The fact that the biggest secret for Rishi in his suitcase is the stamp duty is going to be extended till the end of June. That's given another wave of property buyers now ready to rush in who are holding off. So absolutely a great week for the property world, especially in my circumstances. Not great for buy-to-let landlords because rumours are taxes are going to go up and it's going to affect a lot of buy-to-let landlords. We seem to forget that landlords help the property market in such a big way, but they seem to get penalised all the time, which I'm not too happy about. But apart from that, it's good. Development-wise, great. We're on site now for nearly 5 developments. So, yeah, very busy. I've been rushing around all day today. Ninder popped in, our special guest tonight, trying to pop in to find out a few questions he was going to be asked tonight. He was strictly told by my staff, we don't even know what he thinks on a day-to-day basis. Never mind what he's going to ask tonight.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Well, look, it's good to be back here on a Friday night. Me, I've just had some business meetings this morning, but I've been out on the Licky Hills this afternoon, took the dog for a walk. I think every man and his dog was there literally today.
Did you enjoy it then?
Say again, mate.
I said, did you enjoy it then?
Oh, it was lovely. The sun was out, a little bit nippy, but the sun was out. It was beautiful. Just nice to get out there. And it's funny that you start to see dog owners that you see regular and you're like, hello, hello. And then they start telling you the same story. There was one lady that was telling me a story about meeting a guy with a dog called Elvis. And she says, when he crosses a road, she says, oh, do you make him sit? He went, no, he won't sit to sit. I have to go, uh-huh. And then she says, literally, he made him do it. He went, uh-huh. And the dog sat down. She says, don't you think that's really unique? I was like, yes, definitely unique.
Weird. Yes.
But dogs and their owners.
I'll tell you who's not weird tonight is our special guest.
Indeed. And you know what? I'd say this man needs no introduction, but the introduction can be an incredibly long one. This man is involved in so many different businesses. I want to call him business royalty, actually. And I'll just name a few of them. We've got Business Influencer magazine. We've got Chair Wolverhampton Town Funds Board. We've got Board of the West Midlands India Partnership. I like the sound of that one. We've got the CEO of Natural Group. We've got business loans, music, housing, and so much more. I've been looking forward to this. So let's give it up nice and loud and welcome to Real, Random and Raw on a Friday night, Ninder Johal D.L. Good evening, Ninder.
Thank you very much. What wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Do you know what? And very worthy, though, mate. Absolutely, very worthy. It's great to have you here. We was having a bit of an issue with tech earlier, wasn't we? Trying to get us all into the studio tonight.
That's tech for you. That's tech for you. And I still suspect. Last night I was chairing a finance seminar with Investec, and we were having issues there. So that's just the way it goes.
It happens to the best. Actually, you saying that, I was doing a live event online last night. You call it a live event. They wanted a real host for people from all over the world. There was Mexico on there. There was Brazil. There was France. There was all sorts of different places. Romania, Portugal. And you're dealing with internet speeds and delays and that sort of thing as well. So it was really entertaining. But, you know, modern technology, I think one thing that COVID has taught us on lockdown is that we've still got a long way to go with technology, as great as it is, but it's still not there. Particularly in England, we're quite slow with internet speeds, aren't we, in general?
Well, it's interesting. We might get a chance to speak about 5G and WM5G, a board I sit on, and the role of technology. But I think this type of thing that you're now doing, Phil, maybe a couple of years ago you wouldn't have thought of doing.
Yes.
This is almost like your own TV channel. And, you know, why would somebody, I don't know, what time is it? I don't know, maybe a soap would become on now when they can listen to you chatting about the local region and what's going on and listening to James's week. And you know, we're all creating our own TV channels. We're all journalists. We've got our own stories to tell. And, you know, the traditional TV channel, the traditional weekend is changing because of technology. So it has its ups and downs, but it has what we call democratized everybody's position in society.
And you're right. And it's a great
I'm going to say, Ninder's totally right there. And as Edwin Ladd's put, real random and late, that just shows how live we are, that things go wrong, but the good nature of ours go and help people before we go live. We don't need adverts. We don't need adverts to pay for our things. We can just get on with it.
You wouldn't get this with the BBC. There'd be a special apology notice.
It's called authenticity.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, indeed. And that's us. And that's why we're real, random, and most definitely raw as well. Look, I've got so much for James and I to discuss with you tonight. And it's just like where to start. I'll tell you where I want to start straight away. Is your name. Obviously, we've got Ninder Johal, but then we've got DL. And I know a few DLs. So Deputy Lieutenant, for all of our lovely viewers here, just tell us what DL encompasses, Ninder.
Yeah, it was a privilege and an honor when I was asked by the Lord Lieutenant, who, you know, looks after the Queen, to say, look, would you like to become a deputy Lord Lieutenant? And it was a shock, but it was a proud moment. My wife's a real ardent royalist. I think she was even more excited than I was. And I think it just, I suppose it sort of gives you a bit of a pat on the back that you must have done something right, that you know, you can serve your country again in a different guise. And yeah, so we're sort of the link between the Lord Lieutenant, the Queen, industry, the public, and one of our roles is encouraging particularly industry and business to put themselves forward, particularly when they're excellent in exporting or innovation or sustainability. Our job is to identify these people and put them forward, and also to encourage, Phil, you know, we're 4%, that's the West Midlands, we're 4% of the UK population, but in terms of national award recognitions, we're edging now nicely up north, I think 2.5, 2.8, but it was at some point only 2%. So we've got a lot of work to do, Phil. The problem, James will know this, although James is probably larger than most people in terms of life. But we tend to be very quiet in terms of the region. We don't like to shout out about how good we are, how much talent resides in this region. And we just like to get on with it. But you know something, there are some brilliant people in the region doing brilliant things. And I think they should be duly acknowledged and duly rewarded. And our role is to identify these individuals and encourage them along.
I love that. Another key part is charity work as well to be a DL, isn't it? So you must be involved in a fair amount of charity and done your bit over the years as well, Ninder.
Yeah. So again, it's the link between the voluntary sector and again, one of the awards we try and encourage are people in the voluntary and charity sector who do a lot of work for their community and making sure they get recognised because obviously when they get recognised by the Queen, then it helps them as well as business. It helps them to grow even more. They become empowered. People see them as a bona fide organisation, encourages more funding. And you know who wins? The community wins, and ultimately UK PLC wins.
Well, hopefully, maybe the next step will be what is it? OBE, CBE, MBE, one of those.
Whatever.
Yeah, get in there, see the Queen. Obviously, when you can get in there and see the Queen, I think the only one that's been fortunate, bless his soul, was Captain Sir Tom.
Well, I had the good fortune. I had the good fortune, to be honest with you, to meet the Queen. This was it 2018? Yeah, it was 2 days before the Signature Awards, which I hold at the ICC.
Yes.
And I remember a week before, and anybody who organises a large event knows that the last week is pure chaos. And this invite came to meet, I think, said have dinner with the Queen 2 days before the Signature Awards. and I looked and I thought, you are, but you can't say no to the Queen.
I can't really squeeze you in at this moment.
Yeah. And I just remember walking in, and they sort of told us we'd meet the Queen, but what we didn't know is we walked into the room. We first met the Queen. And then we shook her hand and she asked me what I did and so forth. And there was cameras actually everywhere, so they all take shots, and you don't realize that there's one behind her back, one behind your back, one. And then we moved on to Prince Charles.
Yeah.
After Prince Charles, then we moved on to his wife, and then we were ushered into a room to be met by then the Foreign Secretary, who we now know as Mr. Boris.
Yes.
And then when he asked me where we're from, I said, I'm from the Black Country. He said, oh, yes, he said, my first job was for the Express and Star in Wolverhampton. So he said, I know. Yeah, he said, I know the region well. Then we were ushered into, then the Prime Minister of the time was Theresa May. Looking frazzled because obviously she was going through a hard time. Her husband was there, and then it was a pleasant evening. And then when the whole thing finished, I was about to say to her, I know your diary's busy, but I got a couple of complimentary tickets for the Signature Awards. But I didn't think it was appropriate. Otherwise, I was going to say, listen, I've got a couple of comps for you. Fancy coming next Friday to Birmingham?
She might have fancied a gin or something to unwind.
So that was sort of the preamble, and and then when I got the invite to become a DL, it was a fantastic opportunity and it was a great honour.
Yeah, and rightfully so. You work hard, and it's nice to see those rewards engaging for you as well. Look, moving forward, UK recovery. Obviously, we've got what they call a roadmap now to hopefully give us some goals and direction. Now, I know, looking at all your lists of businesses and things that you're involved in for yourself and for others, there's numerous things I could go into here, but let's just go. We'll cover two areas. One being the events industry, because obviously the Signature Awards, which we'll come on to, is a key area for you. It's a key area of your revenue and also your social circle as well. But what's your thoughts on the UK recovery and that lockdown release now?
Yeah, interesting. So let me just take you back slightly to March. March 23rd, lockdown happened. I think most of us in the events industry thought this will only go to 4 or 5 weeks.
Yes.
And then, of course, it got longer and longer and longer. And then, unfortunately, I've seen people in the supply chain, in other words, people who supply my business, fold. It did become desperate at times because you weren't really sure. I think the bit that was the difficult bit was the uncertainty because you weren't aware of when you would go back. And last summer was a bit of a false dawn because the numbers dropped dramatically and you thought, well, maybe this could be the end of it. Yes. Although admittedly, I was hearing from friends of mine who were sitting on various NHS boards saying, actually, this is in July, we're all planning for a major breakdown in in October, November. And I must admit, I thought, really? The numbers are down to single figures. But you know something, that's exactly what happened. So roll on forward. Roadmap came out. We're talking about April before non-essentials are open. Mass gatherings, that's people coming together in one place. June, I think. I think end of March we'll have a much clearer picture. We'll hear about vaccinations, how quickly that's moved. Remember the UK, we should be proud here that I think the only country ahead of us is Israel, but we've done a phenomenal job in getting vaccines out. It's amazing. I mean, I heard today that bits of Africa may not get it till 2023. And today, whilst we're sort of looking forward to an easing of lockdown, I think Finland or someone has gone into lockdown today. So I think the picture's looking rosy. I think 2021, we still won't crystallize properly what's happening. I'm still hoping that I can sneak in an awards night, big event we do in Leicester. I think then signature in February will be fine. We have got London penciled in and all booked for September. That's questionable. And normally in the summer, we do the Natural Business Awards in Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
That's looking a bit tight. But you know something? We have to take it day by day. But I would say, and I think I said this in December, we are now at the beginning of the end, if that makes sense. And I think we'll have a great finish to the year. I think next year is going to be unbelievable. And I think we'll have what some people are terming as the roaring 20s, except for 1929 was a bad year. Yeah. But barring that, I think we'll have a great year. And those who have suffered, and again, James referred to the budget. It'll be interesting what the Chancellor does regarding furlough, because whether he will extend that and whether there's extra business support, particularly in hospitality and catering. But you know something, Phil, it's been tough. 12 months have been tough. And I've got to say to anybody who survived up to this point, you've been resilient, you've been courageous, and you should be proud that you've had the wherewithal to get through this tough period. And you know something, the benefits for those who survive will be there for everyone post summer 2021.
It's interesting to talk about tough because my background is hospitality, as you know, and also an events and awards presenter. And the city events as well. So for me, most of my industry dried up last March as well. But I actually consider myself luckier than a lot. I've been able to do some online stuff and some commercials, but luckier than a lot because all of these poor people that have to pay for staff or venues, events, all sorts of things, they've had all of these overheads with very little support really from the government. Yes, the furlough has been great, a little bit disjointed, but it's been great. But there's been a lot of people with a lot of overheads, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds, some into the millions over the 12 months plus. So actually, in hindsight, I consider myself quite lucky, but I agree with you. It's been an incredibly tough time for people that have been affected. And not just hospitality and events, it's all of the other people that support those industries, suppliers.
Oh, Phil, you are lucky because you are the host of Real Random and Raw, so you have absolutely nothing to complain about. So I like to, during the show, pop up now and again. And I have to admit, this is the first guest we've had that we don't know a lot about ourselves personally. So we've had to do a lot of digging around. But yeah, literally. But what I was quite interested there is Ninder's gone on about his award ceremonies, the Signature Award, which I am very proud to say that actually I am one of the winners of the awards. And I didn't know Ninder before. A lot of people say in awards, you win them because you know people and you've paid and you've done this. Well, I never knew Ninder until this awards ceremony. I still didn't know when we won it all together. So very proud. We won it for excellence in real estate. Absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic.
But it's all down to the staff. It's nothing to do with me. I'm just the face of the company.
To be honest, when you went to collect that award, I wasn't sure whether you were doing the conga or whether you just had one too many sherries on the way up to the stage.
all my staff wanted their photo with my best mate Andy Street, since my business partner designs his suits. But apart from that, what I love there is Ninder was touching on, Ninder, it's very interesting because what I found, and I go to a lot of award ceremony as a guest, not as an award winner, but your awards are very different. and they're very theatrical. It's like walking into an ITV production studio. Why do you get your awards to be so different to everybody else?
So we touched on earlier that my background is music entertainment. So I played with a band that toured all around the world. So we played with people like Fatboy Slim. We played with people like Prodigy, probably the most violent set I've ever seen on stage.
He's only name dropping. He's showing you up.
But James, I tell you, the best act we played with was Sir Tom Jones. I take my word for it, he was brilliant. And our claim to fame is that what people don't know is that he had to dash off early. So our band, Achana, we went on after him. So actually, we can claim that we were headlining band, and we had Sir Tom Jones as support.
When he had to dash off, did he say, "You can leave the light on"?
So there you go. So as for people throwing things at him, the only thing we've ever had thrown at us is tomatoes. So I don't know where this I don't know where this sort of rumor comes from. But yeah, so having spent 10, 15 years, sort of touring around the world, you get an insight into entertainment. You get an insight into what consumers on the other side watching the stage would like to see. And so I thought that was the element that was missing and I don't think it was strictly just an awards night, it was a networking event as well. And I thought what was missing was that kind of, not exuberance, but a production-led event rather than people just rolling in, doing their bit and going. And so that's where, and you could see the music element that came in at the signature awards, the violin and the flute and everything. That's clearly a collection of my experiences in my career to date, which is very much music-led. So what I brought together at my events was music, entertainment, corporate, hospitality, networking, but very importantly, a large element of it is what I call learning. So we have a keynote speaker who sort of, hopefully gives pearls of wisdom to the audience, and the peers, the people in the room, hopefully learn from other people in the room. So it actually, a large element of it is very subliminal, but a large element is actually learning.
It's
interesting. If I can do, this is where Phil hates it, because I pick up on certain things here. But I wasn't drunk by this point in the awards night, and obviously looking at your background. But you have a very billionaire good friend of yours that I was actually reading in your first edition of your magazine, which just happens to be sat right side. You think we're not prepared on this show, but sometimes you do make a little bit of an effort.
I've been getting envious. I keep seeing people doing posts with this magazine. I'm like, why am I not on the list for this magazine that everybody keeps getting?
Well, we'll have to sort you out, Phil. We'll have to sort you out.
I'll be posting my pictures
now. Posts out all day, don't worry. But what I'm intrigued is obviously you're very good friends with Mr. Cobra, which to a lot of British people, when they go to an Indian restaurant, they're going to say, "Give me a Cobra." How did you get to know such an amazing guy?
Okay, now this was interesting. I've sort of bumped into a few times, but as I needed a keynote speaker for my Wolverhampton event, and he's a busy guy. He's a lord, and he does all kinds of things, and I managed to, just through perseverance, managed to convince him to come and speak. Because you can imagine, he gets an email from a black country Asian guy who says, "Come and speak at my event," and you can imagine he's thinking, this must be some little backstreet little pub. And he wants me to come and speak. Oh, good grief! Do I really want? So you can imagine that that was probably what he was thinking. But I think what helped me was I think a photo was sent to him with me having breakfast with David Cameron. Sorry to name drop again.
Yeah, it's all right. You go.
But it does help. And I think he then thought, well, okay, it can't be some Tom, Dick, and Harry. There must be some substance to this. He came and spoke brilliantly. I mean, brilliantly. And then as he was leaving, he said, "I'm going to be one of your key sponsors for all your events." That was in 2014. We're in 2021. And he has been a key sponsor at all my events.
Fantastic.
Because he loved the event. He loved the event that much. He enjoyed it that much. He obviously had other expectations, but it just blew him out.
I want to go back to the signature awards, actually, because like James, I was a virgin to them up until 2009.
Yes, I'm an award winner, Phil. Are you an award winner?
I'm multi award winner, but not a signature award, sadly. I aspire to be, to follow in the footsteps But most of all, actually, I aspire to be on that sofa. And it was the most random thing for me because I've managed many awards, I've gone to many awards, and I'd never seen the sofa interview before. But it left the most amazing lasting impression. And we've joked about it, but actually I loved it because it was something I hadn't experienced before. And I forget the name of the guest that was there, who was a lovely guy. And we had a great conversation. We connected on LinkedIn and so on afterwards. But it was really insightful and he gave some really insightful knowledge. But I want to know, what made you come up with that idea, Ninder, of doing the sofa?
He was the FX guy. He was the foreign exchange guy who's made his money in foreign exchange.
He'd done a few different things. Yeah, that's right.
Right. So sometimes, so part of the element is fine. So there's three elements to the whole show. There's the element of what I've got to say and making sure that makes bloody sense. Then making sure, and then making sure you understand the experience of the person from 6 o'clock up to 1 o'clock. You've got to make sure you've got every minute worked out.
Yes.
And make sure that so you think, right, so that bit there, right. Now I need something that an audience listens to and thinks, wow, that is amazing. So it needs to be somebody successful in something. And it doesn't necessarily have to be business, but leadership traits and, you know, and the journey. And then you pick a speaker, then you make a decision. Do we want this speaker to speak by themselves? And just, so the year before we had Piers Linney, Dragon's Den, and he chose to speak. And when I spoke to Parish, I said, Parish, either I can interview you or you can speak from a lectern, entirely your choice. He wanted to be interviewed.
Nice.
And we'd done Paul Bassi in Leicester a year earlier, who also wanted to be interviewed. A year before that, we interviewed the Richardsons, the guys who built the Maryhill Centre.
Yeah, brothers,
and he preferred to be interviewed, so interviewed him. Greg Reed, who turned around the Footsie home serve, he preferred to speak himself.
Yes.
Kiran Billamaria preferred to speak. So you look at the person, you look at the content, and you look at the overall way the whole evening is shaped, and that's how you make that decision.
A list of great names there, you know, people that have really made success stories that are inspiring.
Well, I think our first Leicester one was the chair of Burberry, Sir John Peace.
Yes.
And he still is Midlands Engine chairman. And we wanted him to explain to the audience what the Midlands Engine was. But the fact that he was chair of Burberry helps.
Yes, certainly. That's a name that a few might have heard of.
I'm going to step in it. Are you free on a Friday around 5:30 to 6:30, 7 o'clock?
Are you
show busy? I'm still waiting for him to name drop.
Yeah. Well, see, James, and one of the things you're doing, both of you doing pretty well here, is it is all about personal branding and what your brand means to a third party.
Yes.
And obviously, as your personal brand or your business brand grows, that conversion, in other words, getting someone to buy into your vision, becomes easier. So it was tough in the first years. You know, I don't blame Karan Billamari. Mr. Oh, who's this joker from the Black Country? Never heard of him. But it does become increasingly. So the magazine that James just showed, the issue before that, we had an interview with the chair of Tesco's. Now, how often can you get the chair of Tesco's? And not only did he do a podcast with me, but he was in the... sorry, James, I've got to make sure you get this as well. He was in the second one. And this guy was interesting. Yeah, and this guy was interesting.
I'm quite disappointed in this one, I have to admit, because earlier today, obviously, because you sneakily went into my office today to drop this off and try to find out what questions you're going to be asked. And as a good business person, I've actually gone through it and I read it. And I got to this bit. Is that right? UK property market focus?
Yeah.
And hang on, a bit more difficult than you think. And I'm like, hang on a minute. As a multi-award winning, a property agent, I feature in all the national newspapers. I speak on most of the radio stations about my property expertise and predictions. And I'm like, I'm not good enough to be in your magazine. What do I need to do?
James. No, James, what you don't know is your team is talking to my team, and we've been talking for a while. We're just trying to find a subject big enough for you to do.
Nice comeback.
I love it. So, look, business influencer. Great magazine. I keep hearing. Obviously, I haven't seen it myself yet. I just keep seeing
We're going to sort that out.
on the copies on the internet, and it looks great. And I'm like, I've got to get a
10 quid, Bill. 10 quid. You got to put them in your pocket.
That's all right. Investment. Obviously, all the main people are there, so I've got to aspire, haven't I? But the thing is, people are talking about it. It's great, and it has these amazing stories in. You've got brilliant guest speakers. What made you come up with the idea for Business Influencer, Ninder?
Okay, so the record label was set up in a recession, 1990, first recession. We'll chat about how I got into it. Then I set the second business, which is the events business, in 2008. Guess what that was? A recession.
Yes.
And then the Business Influencer, Lord Kiran Bilamaria, that was set up, you guessed it, in a recession.
A good place to start, though, I guess, isn't it? You're either crazy or you know it's only going to go up from there.
I think what we did, so my wife, who's also a business partner, we run it together. And what we tend to do, in the good times, or we meet monthly, and we brainstorm ideas of things we would like to do in the future.
Yes.
So it could be in multitude. And so they're normally parked for a number of reasons. One is they're parked because we don't have the skill set. Two, they're parked because we don't have the capacity.
Yes.
Third, they're parked because it needs a lot of capital injection. And fourthly, it could be that we just don't have the skill sets within the team to do it. But we always wanted to do a magazine. The reason we always wanted to do a magazine, because we thought this audience that we're building to the Signature Awards and the Natural Awards, it'd be nice to offer them a product further down the line.
Yes.
But we just didn't have the time, so we'd parked it. Now, when the crisis came, we didn't make a decision because we were mentally in a crisis. We pulled out all the ideas that were generated in good times. So which means we were able to implement much quicker, and our decision-making and our judgment and decision-making was made in a calm state rather than, I know it's a great saying, when there's a crisis, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is good. But I think if you can take ideas in good times, and that's where the idea didn't suddenly germinate. It's been there for a while.
Yes.
Now we suddenly had the time because of the events you referred to. We had the capacity now. We had the skill set. We developed the skill set. Never done publishing before, but we skill set.
Yes.
What we also did was we quickly went into the market. We checked what Forbes does, American company, Business Week, American company. Then we found 2 or 3 of them at Harvard Business Review, American company.
Yes.
So suddenly they were all American. There was nothing here. We couldn't find anything here. And then we thought, well, but how do we differentiate ourselves? So it's 2 reasons. One, we deliberately picked a high quality paper.
Brilliant.
Very, very expensive.
I'll give it that, Phil. It actually is. As soon as I'm a touch person, and don't take that in the wrong way, please, people watching. But I'm one of these people that will touch stuff, and if I like the feel of it, I stop. So my business cards are like sharks.
Andrew.
And they go, oh, that's different. Let's get your attention. And I have to admit, look, I get lots of not these type of magazines, but lots of publications across my desk, and most of them I don't pay any attention to. And even though Ninder was coming on today, and I have actually got one of the other copies, it's got a lovely, it's got an exclusive, rich money feel to it, if that makes sense. It's like, ooh, this needs a good little read on a Sunday morning, just having a coffee and breakfast. This is something to really go into, like you'd read the Financial Times if anyone does that.
Yeah. So a couple of things we then did. We said, well, we'll have it available digitally, but most people are zoomed out of digital now. They're just too much, and we thought we need it in a physical. So we went against the market in some respects.
I love that.
But the research also showed during lockdown, physical book sales were up, and physical magazine sales were up, provided your content was good. And then we focused on the content. Do you remember at the awards I talk about learning and content?
Yes.
So we took that concept and put it into the magazine. So when you opened it, every article should scream out learning. So you should really think, wow, this is interesting. So we had Stelios in this issue. We've had Bill Amori in the first issue. We've had the guy who lost $710 million in 2 days.
His name dropped, Phil. His name dropped.
Yeah, and he explains how he did that. So I talked about already Tesco share. We've got some big wigs from London. So it's North, it's the Midlands, it's the South. Anybody can read it. And we're just about to sign a deal with some airlines in the Far East, because I believe it or not, in the Far East, the airlines are flying nicely. I know Americans are in trouble, and we are.
Yeah.
But believe me, so we were hoping in the next 3 months the product will be available on all the airlines.
And can I just pick up Edward's question here, because you've answered a lot of it, but as you put, the business influence has been a huge success, but what problems did you face launching it? Now I can tell, and I'm not bragging, but obviously we do the odd publication. It's nothing compared to this. You do this, and as a property company, we do this. So it sort of shows the difference. This is not cheap to put together. So surely, as a new publication, trying to get backing and money to get this out there must have been very difficult, which would answer Edwin's question as well, because this wouldn't happen unless you got money.
Yeah. So two things. Firstly, my printers couldn't believe I went for the most expensive paper.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe I went for the most expensive cover, and their immediate question to me was, reduce your costs. I said, the trouble is, if I reduce my costs, the magazine will look the same as everybody else's.
Yeah.
And they're not going to remember it. And so the hope is that when you pick this up, you've already got a positive mental attitude towards the magazine, simply because when you touch it, you think, this is good. So we went for differentiation. In terms of the quality of the paper, the production, the graphics are great, the photos are great. And then we went for differentiation on the product on the inside to make sure that was then also quality driven. Subscriber base is going up. So most competitors are giving away free magazines. We're charging £10.
Lovely.
So we're saying when someone's paid £10, they're going to read it and they're not going to throw it in the bin because it's come free. Because when you come free, you either flick through it or you bin it. So again, there's a psychological angle to it. And not only are we getting most of the corporates now signing up for annual subscriptions, but people who didn't come to the events, now here's part of the ecosystem, the people who didn't come to the events but wanted to interact with the brand could now do so through the magazine.
Fantastic.
So we're now finding extraordinary number of people communicating with us through the magazine. And you know what will happen, Phil? They'll end up coming to the events.
But it's brand image, brand association, and then you've got brand value there, and all of those things are just winners, particularly for the sort of names and the sort of people that want to connect into that brand power.
But Phil, do you not think this question from Martin Lord's quite interesting, though? Because a lot of people could get confused over this.
What is the difference?
Sorry, what's the question?
What is the difference between the signature awards and the natural awards? Are you going to reach out globally?
Okay, so that's a very important question there. So let me tell you what happened on the event side. So the event side is what we call an incremental strategy. It was like an emergence. It emerged. It wasn't, whereas this one is a deliberate, we know exactly what we're doing with this.
Yes.
And I'm not going to go into the real detail, but we wanted to differentiate between our event in Birmingham and the one in Wolverhampton. And if we called it the same name, people would say, well, hold on, I've just been to that. So we couldn't call it Wolverhampton Signature Awards Birmingham. It's only 12 miles in between.
Yes.
So we went with Natural in Wolverhampton and we went with Signature in Birmingham because that's the financial centre. We took the same signature to another financial centre, which is London. The same signature brand will go to Manchester, which is also a financial centre. So the finance centres are going to be around the Signature Awards. And of course, we got plans. Who would have thought not an epidemic, but a pandemic would happen? Yeah. So it's slightly jolted our plans for India because we're planning to go to India with the Signature Awards. And that's now been slightly, a year later. And interestingly, India could be the first country that actually achieves herd immunity because apparently their numbers are dropping and the vaccinations haven't even kicked in. So that's what happened with the event strategy. And then the colors, the branding sits really quite nicely with the Signature Awards, but we still made sure the family brand Natural is at the bottom. So the whole thing is really well connected. And I was busy on Wednesday because so yesterday we were doing the Investec seminar. They gave some brilliant advice on financial planning. But on Wednesday, but on Wednesday I was doing the podcast. So we have the Business Influencer podcast is also available. So Phil, it means you can learn about business by listening to a podcast. You can learn about business by visiting our YouTube channel, Business Influencer.
Lovely.
You can learn about business by reading it. And you can also learn about business by coming to the event. So all the human elements, touch, feel, not smell probably, touch, feel, read, and watch, you can encounter. So the whole thing is been wrapped up.
You can get the smell of rewards, can't you? That's the thing.
The Indian food. Yeah, you can have.
If they can't smell it, they shouldn't be coming anyway, because at the moment, if you lose your smell, you're likely you've got COVID.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Look, we've mentioned a couple of times, and I can't wait to touch on this, actually, your earlier music career. And James and I was doing a bit of research earlier. James, have you been able to
this down, Phil? You're playing this down. This man is Jay-Z's best friend.
Yeah,
this guy is a billionaire.
I just wanted to see, did we manage to get the video? Can we play it at all?
I don't know if this is going to work. If it works, I'm going to love this. So,
well, let me explain.
Okay, before you play it, James.
Yeah, let me explain the journey, because then you'll see.
Yeah, lovely.
Okay. So the journey is that I took a typical corporate route. I was working as a management consultant, but at the same time, I had a side hustle, and the side hustle was managing and playing with a Bhangra band.
Nice.
And called Achanak. And as I said, we started to tour the world, and I thought, this bloody music is brilliant. I reckon one day we could cross into the charts with this. Now, remember, the music is in a Punjabi language, so you can't understand it. The melody is Punjabi, so you can't understand it. The instrumentation is partly Punjabi, so it was trying to sell something impossible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I quit my job. Can you believe it? I quit my job for this dream. My parents went ballistic.
How old were you?
I was in my mid-20s.
Okay, all right.
And my father said, "You've got an MBA, which is a Master's in Business Administration. Yeah. You've got a finance degree, and what are you now doing?" So his image was Trotter, the yellow three-wheeler. So his image was me driving around the van, a little van full of CDs and cassettes. And he was distraught because he'd insisted that I get this education, which I did. And I was now peddling CDs and cassettes. So it was horrible for him. But I persisted because I had this dream that one day this music would cross. So I knew that people wouldn't come to me for the music because I was selling it largely to Asian kids. I had to go out. If I was going to achieve that dream, I had to take the music to the world. So I was flying around all over Europe, trying to convince Sony, Warner's, Universal, actually anybody who could take me seriously about music that they couldn't understand, with a vocal line they couldn't understand, and with music they couldn't understand.
Delivering those CDs.
And yeah. And rapidly, because I was the only non-white in this whole sort of music genre, I became known as the guy who looks like he comes from India, but it's got a strange British accent. So, and I would walk in with a rucksack full of CDs. Remember, we used to sell CDs.
Yes.
And everybody would hide because I said, "Here he comes again, trying to sell us stuff." Just don't understand. Well, anyway, I think the secret in life is persistence and resilience.
Yes.
I kept at it. So I was into my 10th year now, and I would fly from here. So whether it was Germany or Berlin, Germany or Spain or Portugal, they sort of moved around every year. And I would land, and I would say to my wife, "I've just landed in whatever part of the world, armed with my CDs, and I'm safe, and I'll see you in a couple of days." On my 10th year, I rang in. I said, "I've landed." It was a nice part of France. And she said the immortal words, "I think you ought to now drop the whole idea. This Bhangra music is never going to do it.
Wow.
Just leave it. You've had a shot at it. It was a great dream. But I think after 10 years, I think you have to let it go."
You wanted you back home.
Yeah, come back home. And I won't even tell you some of the journeys I had, the black times and the dark times around finance and all kinds. But anyway, I managed to convince a little Italian label. I said, "Listen, this was so in January." I said, "Listen, I think this might be something." "Are you sure?" "Yeah." Listen, we can't give you any money. I said, "Don't worry, just promote it."
Yes.
Remember, we'd been playing with Tom Jones, Prodigy, so I could see this music was something else. It was just converting the live into a record. And then it started to get some movement. And I met a little label in Germany, a Turkish label. He said, look, you did a deal with them. I'm not going to give you any money. I'll give you royalties. I said, yeah, just take it. Just take it. Here was my break. The Turks completely smashed the nightclubs in Istanbul. Bhangra music started to get traction.
Wow.
And my biggest break was the Turks have a close affinity with Germany. They took the music to the German nightclubs.
Yes.
And I got a call one balmy Sunday afternoon from Germany. And the guy, hello, are you? Yeah. Listen, we've got a track here that's doing some major noise in the clubs. We don't understand it. Haven't got a clue what we're saying, but people love it.
Love it. Yeah.
Can we sign it for Europe? I said, let's do the deal. And then when it really happened was that about a month later, I was in Oxford Circus. The music came on. I turned around thinking it'd be Asian kids. It wasn't. It was a Beatle full of 5 white teenagers to hop in and pop into the track. I thought, we've got something here. We then got it signed to Sony in the UK. And then within a month, it was on Radio 1 rotation. And as I headed back abroad,
wow.
As I left these shores, I rang Sony. I said, how are we looking? They said, we think we might go top 10.
That's incredible.
I landed, so 10 years, I landed in Midam, which is where the record companies came. And the charts, if you remember, are always done on a Sunday on Radio 1.
Yes.
Do you remember those days, Radio 1?
Day, yeah.
And I remember sitting, tuning in. Remember, we might go top 10. And they said, right, now it's top 10. 10 came in, not featured. 9 came in, nothing. 8 came in, 7, 6. I said, didn't do it. Oh, well, at least we had a bash at it. We went in straight at number 5. It was the first Punjabi track
wow.
to go into the UK charts. We then had 9 number 1s. And then Mr. Jay-Z called from the States. And I think now you can play the track featuring his
see if it works. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it works.
Yeah,
Here we go.
Have you still got Jay-Z's number in your?
Good afternoon, everybody. For over 4 decades, the people have lived under the rule of a tyrant who denies them their most basic human rights.
The time has come for him to step aside.
We must keep on with the NATO mission and bring him to justice.
I made that up.
It's the rock in the building. Yes, Ma. I ain't gotta tell you, but it's your boy Ho from the US.
WTF? What the فخور Muhammad عملية?
Catch your boy mingling, England, meddling in the Netherlands, checking in daily under aliases.
Ah, America, the birthplace of AIDS.
Admiral General, welcome to New York City. And while you're here, I highly recommend a visit to the Empire State Building before you or one of your cousins takes it down.
1, young, 2, you, 1, 2, 3.
Malawa! Megan, you were worth every penny. I trust everything is in there as your manager requested.
What's this, a ruby? Is that a joke? What am I, a Kardashian?
No, of course not. You're much less hairy.
OC and we don't stop.
On your marks. Get set.
Besides the fact of being attached to a fantastic film, wow, to be able to get that attached to The Dictator, that was, wasn't it? With Sacha Baron Cohen. How did that feel to have it connected to a movie like that?
Well, that wasn't the only one. We had a number of other movies and lots of adverts. And so it wasn't a surprise, to be honest with you. But I think 2 things stand out. Firstly, it reminds me of the resistance from people who said, it's in Punjabi, the instrumentation is difficult, we can't do anything with this. And it also reminds me, probably even a prouder moment was when I got back, having gone top 5, on a Thursday, Top of the Pops used to come on. And I still remember putting the TV on, settle down with a cup of tea and some biscuits, and I waited for them to say number 5 on Top of the Pops. And that, to me,
was the moment,
was the achievement of a dream, to watch a track from the Black Country produced in the West Midlands with the artist from the West Midlands, Punjabi MC, but to see a West Midlands constructed, distributed, promoted brand go on national TV and then achieve 9 number 1s, including the US, and the only territory we never sold was China, and it became the top, I don't know, it was the top global dance track of that year. And it was the only time, although he's done much better than I have, the only time in the producer charts I sat above our friend, Britain's Got Talent, what's his name?
Simon Cowell.
Simon Cowell.
Yeah.
I was at number 2. He was at number 4.
Artist from there, couldn't it? But
so that was a proud moment. It's a proud moment for me. It was a proud moment for the region. It was a proud moment for people of my culture, because suddenly we had something of our own, which was a combination of what the West Midlands and the Punjabi culture, and we were able to put it on a global map.
Just an incredible, incredible story. And obviously, I bet you learned a lot in business through that as well, Ninder.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot about negotiation. Learned a lot about culture, the different cultures around the world as we were licensing to various regions.
Yes.
I think when I was playing with the band, I was in my early 20s. I learned about leadership, how to lead a band full of creatives, bass player, drummers, keyboards, how to make sure that each musician was allowed the freedom to express their creativity whilst playing within a team. Because remember, the audience wants to hear a collective sound. They're not interested in people doing their own little bits. And so that taught me a lot about creative talent, retaining talent, recruitment of talent, and creativity in itself and how you maintain it. And of course, through the music, I learned a lot about branding. And of course, we didn't have the tools like social media then, like we do now.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of things that I learned without realizing I was learning them.
I've got Ninder, can I just ask Ninder? I think it's quite important what you said there. So we've just watched, regardless what people's thoughts are on a film, that was a massive Hollywood film that came out and divided attentions in so many different ways. Now, something that really divides my attention, being a proud Geordie up from the northeast, yes, I'm not a Birmingham, I'm a Brummie by day and I'm a Geordie by heart, is the north-south divide. Now, I know you have some strong views on this, because that film could have easily been done by a London film studio all day long, and most people like me would have thought UK, that would have been done in London, not up in Birmingham, because why should it? Tell us why you think, or what could be done to stop this north-south divide in Birmingham, stop being too close to London, and start to come out of its own identity and show the rest of the UK how to move forward after this pandemic.
James, before we just get Ninder to answer that one, because that takes us onto a whole different section. I've just got 2 questions I want to ask. So let's just park that one moment. 2 things. With your royalties, what was the first thing you bought that was something exciting that you could splash out on? And
private plane.
Number 2, I'm still intrigued. Do you still get royalties coming through from your music?
Yeah, so 2 things. Firstly, where I spent the money wasn't extravagant and would be really boring. As any business person should tell you, we reinvested it. And that's now laid fruition. And to be honest, I'm not really that ostentatious type of person where I like to flash out. I'm quite comfortable with what I've got. And sorry, your second question was
Ninder, but it's nice to travel around Europe now in your private plane, though, yeah?
Yeah.
well, I've heard James. I've heard James that there's an individual in Birmingham who runs an estate agent who's probably bought them all, apparently, and the price of them is just.
I'd love to know.
It's all about supply and demand.
And the other one, Ninder, was royalties. Do you still get a royalty check come through?
Yeah, but obviously we still have our repertoire of records, so not just that track, but loads of other records. They're still spinning on Spotify, new business model, and of course we continue to get royalties and sync licenses and Yeah, and you know, each month's royalties would differ depending on which track's doing well. So yeah, the answer is yes. It's a bit like a pension. A bit like a pension.
So Phil, we have a third question here. Do we have to pay you a royalty for playing that tonight?
I'm sure we can get around that one. Well, it's off YouTube. It's off YouTube, so it's publicly available.
We'll probably find, as we're streaming on Facebook also, they'll probably edit it out later. We'll have a muffled part on the live when you go back to watch it.
Right, let's go back. Let me change that subject completely. The North-South divide, because I'm very passionate about this. I'm a Northerner through and through. As I said, I'm a Brummie by day, I'm a Geordie by heart. And I know you have some strong feelings about this, because when you look at the success that you've just had there in the music business and a lot of other things, there is a big divide between what happens in London and what happens in the North. But Birmingham is getting caught in the middle to me, because Manchester, as you mentioned earlier, is another big financial centre. And Birmingham's stuck in the middle, getting either dragged closer to, it's that way, isn't it, London? And, you know, and it's got to create its own identity. And I feel that coming out of COVID, there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of people just about to get it right who could really put Birmingham's on the map, but they could really put Birmingham on the map, if that makes sense. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so a couple of things. I think a lot of people argue that London's really successful, the rest isn't. We need to bring London down. I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. We need a functioning, flourishing London as a capital city. But I think the task is to get the rest of the country to be shooting at the same pace. So that's where your leveling up strategy comes in.
Yeah.
Now, I was in a meeting on Monday with the Secretary of State for Communities, where they told the world that the second, so apart from London, a second government department is going to be based in Wolverhampton. And that's an amazing news. That's 800 civil servants up to will be in Wolverhampton, and will now, for the first time, rather than waiting somebody in London to make a decision who may have never even been to the region, we're now going to have in Wolverhampton somebody who will live, walk around Wolverhampton, catch the train to Birmingham, go to Coventry, will now have an understanding of what ordinary people feel in a region like the West Midlands. Fantastic. So I think that's a fantastic coup, not just for Wolverhampton, not just for Black Country, but for the West Midlands. That's your first signal that government's taking the regional approach very seriously. So that's the first thing.
Actually, also good for the country, because London has a whole different economy, doesn't it? So that is actually good for the country. It's really good for West Midlands, but great for the country, because it's like they're living real life all of a sudden.
Absolutely. So instead of watching London make misinformed decisions, suddenly they'll be here. Now, instead of me having to go to London to meet the Secretary of State, the possibility is we might bump into him just outside Wolverhampton railway station. And we can now have quicker decisions made, because we'll be able to walk into that building and say to the communities department, this needs doing for our community. That's the first thing. Secondly, Birmingham is the link between the north and the south through HS2. That's a great, and that will do so much for property and everything. Yeah. Thirdly, we've got M6 Junction 10, which is the heart of the transport system of the UK PLC. That's been modified, and again, that will become a transport hub.
Yes.
And let's not forget, we are the test bed for 5G. So we are the one chosen area to test 5G. So this could become one of the best things when it comes to use of technology, which will also bring in inward investment. We have the West Midlands India Partnership, which understands that we've got to look to the east now, not to Europe, but we've got to look to the east for our growth. And we're based firmly in a region that has some great people who understand India. So lots of things going on. COVID has slightly put things back, but I think Birmingham, Coventry, the Black Country, the West Midlands is perfectly placed to explode, not just this year, not just next year, but the remainder of the decade. The West Midlands will become the place to live, to work and play.
I love that. And I completely agree. We are in a growth boom. Coventry, capital of culture next year. We've got
Commonwealth Games
here.
Well, let's not go there on the Commonwealth because Birmingham's made a mess up of them. So let's move on from that one.
James, let me just slightly correct that, James. Let's make that decision once the games have been concluded.
For someone
it's going to be a difficult journey, but I think let's just wait to conclude. Then we can make that assessment.
What a lot of people don't know about me is I was born in Newcastle, but I was actually brought up in Manchester following my dad's job because, like yourself, my dad's actually on the trust of an NHS, so he was a very successful person in the NHS. Yeah. So I was in Manchester, and it was very interesting because when we moved to Manchester, it was a very poor place. You know, it was the northern town, Mancunians through and through. But the Commonwealth Games changed that city forever. And what it managed to do was, if it was the right time, maybe, but it allowed them to have the blueprint to say, this is such an opportunity, we can change where we want to put this city. Now, when I lived there, Manchester was the city centre. It was Lancashire everywhere out the city centre. So technically, I actually was brought up in Lancashire, not Manchester. And now, obviously, when the head of the city council obviously came in, Sir Howard Bernstein, he changed it all. And his vision was open it all up. He took on another great role as it came out of there because I think he was number 2 or number 3 in the council at the time. But the blueprint was there. And they had everything from accommodation to the stadium, the buy-in from the city. Everyone bought into it, and it was amazing. The difference is now, and this is what frustrates me as being an outsider to Birmingham, and I am, Birmingham's always got that pint glass 3/4 full. It's never half or full. It's always 3/4. And I feel that there was enough notice given. Ian Reid and his team have done a great job. But the difference is the accommodation could be ready if they wanted it to be. And there's no point having a games and then going, but by the way, everyone can stay down in Worcester or, down in London and travel up. And, the argument was, why have a cycle dome here? Because we've got one in Manchester and London. Well, you should have a cycle dome because we're Birmingham and we're based in Birmingham. And there's a lot of people in Birmingham who want to cycle in Birmingham and want to create, themselves a new career and not have to travel to other places. We've got in Smethwick, which I think is amazing, which is, I believe, is your hometown, Ninder. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I know I know the park it's been going on, and there's a lot of uproar about the Olympic swimming pool going into Smethwick. But people walk around that park with a dog and constantly see empty beer cans, vodka bottles, needles, and everything. There couldn't be anything better than to put a world-class centre in that place. And yes, it will do amazing for property prices, but even just for local people after the games, that will do kids coming through the system an amazing benefit, because I can see a lot of schools there will start to have all their swimming lessons in the Olympic pool, and it'll be amazing. But I just think sometimes Birmingham just doesn't fully commit, and it really annoys me. And I don't get it. I just really don't understand. Why can't it just go 100%? We're Brummies, we're Birmingham, we're proud. Let's just go for it.
James, I think part of that. Sorry, Ninder. I think part of that was.
That's okay, go on.
I don't think we got the choice. I think London cut the budget. The same with the village. Where the athletes should stay over in Perry Bar. I'm sure the budget was cut, wasn't it?
Well, maybe if Andy Street accepts our invite and he wants to come on and talk about it, then he will tell us what he's actually done to fight for that budget to get up here. The same as our local councillors, and that's what we need.
Ninder, what's your view?
Yeah. I think a couple of things. I think what we've now got right is that we have a combined authority. A bit like Manchester did all those years ago. So they were quite cute in understanding that scale is what matters. Working in disparate little towns doesn't give you that buying power. I think that's what they got right, and you're right. Bernstein was the architect of that, making sure they had that scale. I was involved in the very early stages of when they were putting the West Midlands Combined Authority together and getting 7 metropolitan leaders, that's the Black Country, Birmingham, and Solihull, to put aside their parochial needs and to agree that to get scale, they would have to cede some control to a metro mayor. Was a difficult act, and it's a difficult thing to do. But something, they put their parochial interest aside and said, let's have a mayor. And we've had billions now coming into the region from central government.
Yes.
We've just had MCLG confirm their first headquarters outside London is in Wolverhampton. And we've got money going into the Wolverhampton town centre. I sit on the Black Country LEP board, and I can tell you a lot of money has gone into local businesses to generate that kind of growth. We've not seen this for decades. And I think there's a lot more to do. Listen, James, you're absolutely right. There's a lot more to do. There will always be a lot more to do. But I think we're on that journey, and getting the political dynamics right was the first precept. And we've got that right now. That allows us now to go further down the journey. And the Commonwealth Games gives us the opportunity to brand Birmingham and the surrounding area to the entire world. There'll be billions watching this.
Yes.
And and let's grasp the opportunity. And I completely agree, James. We've got to be a bit more on, but I'm sure in time, COVID hasn't helped. Look, COVID hasn't helped. The teams are all disparate. It hasn't helped. And that's put us back a bit. But I'm sure we've still got, a year and a half, or year a bit. And the date's now confirmed because the vaccine's in train. I'm sure they'll sort it. But there are, James, I agree, there are opportunities to really maximise on this.
So let's put you on the spot. And are you an Andy or Liam fan?
I think it would be totally imprudent since I sit on the LEP board and I sit on a number of statutory boards. I'm the chair of the Wolverhampton Towns Fund. I think it would be totally inappropriate for me to be able to make a comment either way, because whoever wins, I have to work with them.
But you have to remember, the person who's bringing all the money in just happens to be Conservative. The other one had no money left to give.
The safe was empty.
Well, I think Andy's done a great job up to date, but it's the electorate that will make that decision. Yes. And I'll happily work with whoever is now the next mayor, both in my role as the LEP and my role as part of WM5G, and more importantly, as my role of chair of the Wolverhampton Towns Fund, where we've just put a bid in, since last July, and we're hoping, we put in for a 50 million bid, and we're hoping in the next few days to hear about that. Now, when that money comes in, as well for Sandwell and other towns, that's more generation going into the area. And you know what's important, James? And I like your idea about half glass full and 3/4 full and full glass full. People are getting more and more optimistic. The perception of the region we live in is going up north. And, we don't have to worry about Manchester. We just need to take care of ourselves and just hope that what we're going to deliver, we're able to deliver. And if we do so, then we're all going to benefit.
We've got the age old with Birmingham, West Midlands, Black Country, that we've never shouted enough about the great things that we have. And we've got so many great things to be thankful for. But I actually finally think that people are starting to shout more. People like us here and many more. And Andy Street, who I think has done a great job as West Midlands Mayor, particularly as our first mayor, bringing business. He's constantly popping up here, there, and everywhere. He's a voice. He's got the messages.
He's all right.
No. I know Liam Byrne as well, and I think Liam is a really lovely guy. But I think for our first West Midlands mayor, he's done an incredible job. But where I'm going with that is it's the collective, just what Ninder said, the collective of us working together, speaking positively, because this is what Manchester, from the council to the citizens, the residents of Manchester, this is what they've done for many years. And I think now that Birmingham is starting to do that, Peaky Blinders, gosh, talk about that putting us on the map as well. We've just
it got to the Black Country Museum, never the city centre.
Yeah, but look, we've got great things to shout about. We've got the tram that's coming here now and so much more. And I agree with Ninder, because I think there's a lot more to shout about. There's a lot more happening. And we've just got to, we as the people have got to keep that momentum going, to keep shouting.
Phil, don't get me wrong. Listen, Phil, I've got to defend myself here. It's, as you know me, I'm very blunt and I don't really care who I upset or please. At the end of the day, I'm very proud to live down here in the West Midlands, and I think it's a great place. I think it's got a lot of things that it can be, but you never hear people being proud about being Brummies. They always look second best, and I think that's going to change now. Well, I think it's going to change, and I think I'm very proud to live here. I think it's a great place. I think there's a lot of magnificent things, and I just think that we've got such an opportunity now here in the West Midlands. Like we say, look, Andy Street is I'm a big fan of Andy Street, regardless what I say. I love Andy Street. I love where he walks around his little avocado bag and, and all this. But as a politician, and he is a politician, same as Liam Byrne, I just think sometimes that his message gets wrong because he's all about big business and he forgets about the smaller businesses. And if you look at the stats for Birmingham, I don't have them now, but the stats for Birmingham, it's made up of entrepreneurs with SMEs, and it would just be nice for the local mayor to really support them more and more. It's great that JLR are going to build a big gigabyte, factory and build batteries, and they're probably going to sell them to Tesla since that's the best electric car you can buy, and all this sort of stuff. But you just want them to go around your local coffee shops and your local streets and go, I'm your mayor, I'm here. This is what, and that's to me what a local mayor is. Regardless if it's a city or anything, you want to be there going, this is what I'm doing, bam, bam, bam. And I get it. It's easier if you're going to a big company, going to employ 2,000 or 3,000 staff, 2,000 and 3,000 staff. But also on a flip side, it's very easy for a corporate company to get rid of 2,000, 3,000 staff. If you speak to an SME with 50 staff, they will absolutely have heartache trying to get rid of one staff.
I'm going to let Ninder comment first, and I'll follow after Ninder. But Ninder, please give your view on James's point there.
What about SMEs?
Yeah, and about whether we should be shouting about big business or little business, or whether one takes more approach than the other.
Okay, so I think all big businesses normally start as a small business. So it just depends on the evolution of the sort of the journey. I think a lot of small businesses are in the supply chain of big businesses. So if you take JLR, and it'll be interesting how they cope with the batteries in the supply chain. So business is very much interconnected. If a big business, a big anchor business goes down, then a lot of little businesses go down with them. Yeah. So I think, completely agree with James, small business is as important as the big business. Small business tends to have a lot more loyalty to the region they live in because they meet these people day in, day out. I think we need to increase productivity from small and large businesses. We need more skilled people. We need better roads. We need a better transport system. We need to make sure the digital revolution continues. We need to make sure the right skills are there. We need to make sure that private and public sector work together, listen and understand what people need. And I think we need to inspire and aspire the generation coming up to say, this is the region. And let's not forget, over the last 2-3 years, Birmingham, Wolverhampton have been the epic centre outside London for startups. Yes. So let's not forget that this is the place to do a startup. We have great universities. We have some great graduates. Let me tell you a story. I was in the, because I do a big event in the East Midlands, so I go there quite often. And I speak to some people there, and one lady said something quite remarkable to me. She said, my daughter's just applied for a job in Birmingham. She said, until recently, we all used to send them off to London.
Yeah.
But actually, we think the place that's happening is the West Midlands. So people are gravitating towards Birmingham. I'm in London because we're doing a big event in London Park Lane at the Hilton. And people are telling me there, the big investors, they see assets in the West Midlands as undervalued. So they're ploughing in with their money. And James is far more qualified to talk about than I. But I know foreign direct investment is up. So all the symbols, all the signals are saying this is the region. And you know something, we're already living here. And this is the place that's going to fly. And we just need to keep at it and just make sure that private and public sector continue to work for the benefit of all the residents and business in the West Midlands.
And I agree, and I think Dave Hadley speaks a great point now where he said collaboration across the region is what makes the difference. I think the difference is it's great where we've got the West Midlands Combined Authority, as we all agree, but one thing that we don't have control of is the council. And the council's got to look at it and stop being political and start representing the clients who live in the area, as in us, who live in the local authorities and represent us, rather than what party that they're politically go to. I just want to pick up on one point that we just missed. Was Edwin was asking, because it relates to me more, is will house prices now go up in Wolverhampton or city centre apartments? Wolverhampton's been going up anyway, Edwin, so you probably already missed the boat that as a property investor. What's going to happen? Look, property prices are at the top of my agenda this week. Everyone's asking what's going on with the property prices. I'm publicly out there on every national newspaper, including, I can name drop now, the Times, the Financial Times, the Express, the Daily Mail, Talk Radio. I can do it all now. It's I've said the property prices will go up this year by 4%. And everyone's going, you're crazy. I went, but I've not been wrong since Brexit, and I don't think I'm going to be now. What we're going to see is a little drop slightly. As soon as the holiday of the stamp duty stops, I don't think it's made a huge difference unless you're buying, a 400 to £500,000 house more. Then that's where you see the big benefit of the stamp duty holiday. The rest of it will carry on. If you're a first-time buyer, you're not really that affected. So a lot of the first-time buyers moving forward will do well anyway. What we'll see is a little slight dip in the second half. Well, the fourth quarter of this year, we will see prices jump quite dramatically. Very simple maths: supply and demand. So, it should be the other way around, that shouldn't it? So supply and demand. The difference is we're not building enough. The UK has to build just shy of 300,000 houses a year just to cope with the current demand. We are nearly 16 years behind the demand we need. We can't play catch up. So there's a big difference. Have we got an influx of overseas investors buying? Yes. Is every property going to be rented? No. We have, in Birmingham, I'll just take Birmingham as an example, because obviously I know that more than Wolverhampton. There was over 1,200 units available for rent. It's one of the all-time highs. It's never been seen of. And we've got more new developments about to arrive on the market. Will we see a fluctuation in rent? Yes. But property prices will increase because there still won't be enough to give the demand, and it's all about your target audience. So, Edwin, property prices are not going to go down. The difference is every area will stagger slightly. It's all about catering for the right demand and the right quality, and that's what you will see the answer to any question.
Thanks for that, James. Right,
Ninder, I'm glad I'm useful on this podcast.
Moving forward, we've seen in today's news about the travelling vaccine. I don't mean the vaccine getting on a plane and going off here, there, and everywhere. About having the passport for the vaccine, so we can travel again. Firstly, I want to say to you, when you've got the opportunity to travel, where do you want to go to, Ninder? What's the first place you want to go to on the map?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be really boring again, because I spent my formative years touring all around the world. The last thing I like to do is get on a plane, because I spent 10, 15 years. It's a busman's holiday. Everywhere, you name it, Barcelona, Milan. We've been to Istanbul. We've been to Malaysia. We've been to Singapore. We've been to Tokyo. Everywhere. So I'm not normally the first ready to jump on a plane. But you have to do. And I should probably have to do it for our overseas events in India and so forth. But that's where I think hopefully Zoom will come in. As for the passport, now this is interesting for the events industry. Will this become mandatory? So will we be told that you cannot allow anyone in as part of your health and safety, and as part of your risk assessments? You are not allowed. Do you remember only a short while ago, if you came into a pub, you'd have to write your name and address down? Now, I don't know to what degree people adhered to that, but I think psychology is going to be important, because whilst June the 21st mass events can continue, it'll be interesting what the consumer thinks. How much of a risk does the consumer see going to a mass event? If the consumer realizes that the event they're going to, there's going to be that requirement, in other words, a vaccine passport and a temperature check, that confidence to attend that event will be going to be really interesting as to whether it's mandatory, who carries it out. Is it the promoter, the person booking the event? Is it the venue? And what will that passport look like? But if it means, I'm going to be honest with you, if it means that we can encourage people to go to mass events and to spend money in hospitality and to grow the UK economy, if that's what it requires to do that and to increase people's confidence, then I'm up for it. I'll do anything it requires to get the economy roaring again.
Ninder, it's great you said that. So this is why I love to be controversial. This is where we come very random and raw here. So obviously I'm going to be due. I think you probably had your vaccine, if I'm right.
Not yet. Not yet.
So I'm due in the next few weeks to get mine because of my asthma.
Okay.
I still haven't had it. I get the flu jab every year. But then I look at it on a flip side slightly, and I think, well, actually, under the age of 40, and unfortunately I'm now over the age of 40, people are healthy. They're young, they're healthy, they've got great immune systems. And I have to look at it on a flip side here and go, if they had COVID and they've got over it and their body's fought it, then why would they want to put something in there? And I'm not saying it's wrong, by the way. I'm just saying I'm all about the vaccine. Get us out of this. So before anyone piping up on that, I'm all about the vaccine. But I do have that little niggle in the back of my head going, well, if you're healthy and you've got a strong immune system, the vaccine doesn't stop you getting it. It just stops you getting very serious ill. Then why should young people be told they have to have it? Because if we look at the event sector, like we're talking about, the hospitality sector, which is networking events like yourselves, the wedding arena, which has just been annihilated, which has a huge knock-on effect to a lot of
awards and dinners as well. We have our lunches and things.
Which the majority of people who turn up will probably be under 40 years old. If we had to do the numbers, they would be, and they've got strong immune systems. Then I look at it and go, how can we have a passport? It's just morally wrong. Even though I totally agree with having, I know it sounds a bit weird, but I'm agreeing, get the vaccine to get us out of this. If all the dice are rolled on black and we've got to go and have the vaccine and that's it, then go and do it. But it's morally wrong to turn around to someone and say, you can't come in here because you don't have a passport.
Okay, so a couple of things. I think firstly, we do know that you can be a super spreader without actually having it. You can be that. And what we can't have unleash is super spreaders without that coverage. That's the first thing. I think secondly, if you said to someone, repeat the last 12 months turmoil, would you prefer that against a passport? I tell you, I'll be struggling to find someone who says, I prefer the turmoil of the last 12, 18 months to a passport. I think if we can make just a little adjustment, and it is a small adjustment, for the benefit of the UK PLC and for the benefit of mental health. I mean, people have gone through nightmares of what's happened here.
Yes.
Then surely a little passport. Now, remember, I just told you, in Africa, the certain parts of African countries are not going to be even anywhere near a vaccine until 2023.
Yeah.
The developing countries are 49. So, that little adjustment.
Sorry, I have to go. I'm quite passionate about this one. So it's quite interesting because, look, my mum's piped up. I knew she would. NHS person, here she goes. So it's good that I get the family support watching this. But it's interesting because I have to agree, look, in other countries, it's going to be completely different. But at the same side, they are outdoor countries because they're typically hot. They can live outdoors. They don't have the same medical services as we do. And we're quite fortunate that we have got a great NHS service. But there's a lot of regions at the moment who are outside. They've got restrictions, but businesses are still operating, where economy now is nosediving. And I think the government's realised that. And my mum's just put, which is quite funny, it helps other people, not just yourself. But I totally agree. So I'm going to twist this and make it very controversial. And maybe this is a chat for another day, Ninder, if you want to come back on. So my other half, as everyone knows, is a teacher. One has probably the strongest immune system I have ever seen. Never gets ill, is never sick, because young kids are sick all the time. And as an adult, your body gets used to it and you start to protect. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. She agrees, get the vaccine so we can get out of this. But all of a sudden, if she had that vaccine and in 3 years' time she started getting iller every year, if that's a word, iller or more sick every year, because of what's gone in her arm, because we don't know 100%. And I'm just going to clarify again, I agree with getting the vaccine, and as a family we do. But if she got more sick afterwards because she got less immune to sickness from children and stuff like this, then that's wrong. So there's got to be a little bit more here of we've got to know a bit about where we're out. And I just think, personally, I think as a gambling man, and I'm going to put this out here, I think as soon as I'm vaccinated as one of the the people who have a serious illness and over 50s are done, I can see very quickly the government will change its stance, and I'll put it out here and go, it's advisable under the age of 50 to get a vaccine rather than mandatory. And I can put it on now. So I think that'll happen.
Listen, a couple of things. Firstly, I'm no doctor, so I can't comment on the efficacy of the injections. A doctor will. I think what we was given on Monday was a roadmap. I think that roadmap could change either way. So if a variant comes, that might change what's happening. But equally, James, I agree with you. The vaccinations might be even more effective than we think. Hospitalization might start coming down. The number of deaths might dramatically come down. Now, I'm only going to take you to the last summer when the number of deaths were in single digits and we had no vaccine in place. And yet the summer did allow that to happen. So we're coming up to spring now. The weather will get better.
Yeah.
But what we've got this time, which we didn't have last summer, is a trend of falling deaths while we're still in winter. But secondly, we've got a vaccine that's now flying through the country. And do you know something, James? I can't tell you what the government's going to do next week. I don't think anyone can tell us what they're going to do in 3 months' time. And anything could change. But I think if we remain optimistic, if we work together as a community, if we see the same end goal, which is to return the economy, because remember, the economy is linked to health, the health is linked to the economy. The two go hand in hand. If you don't have a flourishing economy, it leads to health problems, mental. And if you got health problems, you have a functioning economy. The two are linked together. And I think as long as we see the big picture, then I think we'll be fine. And I agree with you, James. Listen, I don't know what's going to happen in 2 weeks. I've always said I wouldn't confirm my events. I wouldn't confirm my events till the end of March, where I've got a really good picture of what the trends are saying.
I agree, and I have to admit, I'm quite strong on this at the moment because, listen, I'm all about just go and get vaccinated, and let's just get out of this. Because one point you've just hit there, which I think a lot of people do forget about that. And I know it's horrible, but I had a big conversation about this last night that Phil was actually on the same networking event as me last night. And I was quite strong on this. Now, when we live in a capitalist world, it makes no difference if you agree or disagree with it. The world, unfortunately, works on money. And if there's no money to pay for something, then that service or industry will collapse. And that actually means health services. And if you can't pay for it, it will collapse. And I think we are at that point where the NHS is fit to purpose and it needs to change. It needs reform without a shadow of a doubt. Without COVID, I think everyone deep down knows it needs to change. But I think this is going to change a lot more than what people expected. And I think it's the right time to do it more than anything else because, we're going to be, we're going to have this for years to come. But I also think that Boris has, look, I don't mind saying this. I think he's handled it wrong from the very beginning until he went, the vaccine's the way out, and he's stuck to his guns now on the vaccine. And the difference is he's admitted, look, there is going to be, unfortunately, and we're all sad about this, more deaths. Regardless of what he does, there's going to be deaths. But as a prime minister, and none of us would love's the wrong word, none of us would like to be put in that position to say, Prime Minister, you now need to make a decision. Let the economy go, and there is going to be deaths, or keep lockdown, and there's going to be deaths. Which one do you want? And that's literally what he's got to handle.
James, we could go on about this one all night. It's a huge subject. I think one thing we can all be sure of, though, is that since COVID came in, nobody has died from flu or old age over the last 12 months. So something's working in our benefit somewhere along the line. But look, COVID's one to pick up on another time, and I know it's a great subject and a very strong subject. So
can I interrupt you, Phil?
Yeah.
Well, you can always die of something, and that's supporting a shit football team, which I believe Ninder is party to that one, I believe.
It's not Aston Villa, is it? Because that's me.
Not, but I've been told he supports a very poor football team.
Which one, Ninder?
West Bromwich Albion.
Hey, it's local. We should be supported. We might not
Absolutely. Listen, I'm looking. There's going to be an important game coming up soon against a certain team called Newcastle.
Who?
Newcastle. That's going to be a crunch game.
Listen,
I've got to get this right. It's there.
That's a 6-pointer all the way. It's a 6-pointer.
There's a reason why the people in Newcastle have a good sense of humour.
Yeah.
Look. One more question before we wrap up this evening. Do you know I could talk to you all night, Ninder. I'm sure James will agree. You've got so much to talk about. You've experienced such a lot and so versatile as well. But Prince Harry. Now, obviously, one of the comments he's come out with is that the press have been destroying his mental health, which is a similar thing that his mom experienced all those years ago. But obviously, has gone on to Oprah. And he said that his life has been, so a lot of people have commented about him going on to Oprah saying, hang on, you're saying this, but then you're putting yourself in the public eye. But the difference being, he classed himself in the royal family as being a bit like a performing monkey because he's born into it and he's sent here, royal duties as such. What's your thoughts around that, Ninder, as an outsider looking in?
I think they made a decision. What their future looks like. That's a decision they've made. We can't comment on whether that's going to be in the long term the right or the wrong decision. How they choose to now interact with the world now is up to them. I think we're really blessed that the royal family have done a superb job, irrespective of some of the issues that have been happening over the years, which all families go through.
Yes.
And I think at some point, depending on what they want to do, the Sussexes and the royal family, I think that's just the way life and the dice roll. And if that's the route they've chosen to take, good luck to them.
Beautiful, sweet, short answer. I love that. I really love that. James?
He's not going to ask me. I can tell you this now.
I bet you can't keep it as short and sweet as that reply.
Well, I can tell you now. All Harry's done is, yes, I believe his mum was one of the most incredible women in this world. And I think as a kid, how do you live through that? Yes. But on the flip side, let's move on forward. He's watched Suits like every other guy and has just gone, I fancy a bit of that. And he just knows to ring up. And he's pulled it off. What can I say?
Ninder, listen, it's been amazing to chat to you tonight. We're going to have you back because I'm sure there's so much more that we can talk about and connect with as well. But look, is there anything particular that you want us to touch base on before we finish this evening's show?
I think I would just say to people, it's been a horrendous 12 months, really bad 12 months. I think we're seeing the beginning of the end. I think we will bounce back strongly. I think as a city and as a region, we're in a great place.
Yes.
I think this is an opportunity now for us all to work collaboratively, private and public, to work both as individuals and collectively as teams and with business, and make this quite simply the best region to live, to rest and play. But equally at the same time, I think we need to encourage other bits of the UK, because you can't rely on one or two regions to pull a whole country. We want everybody to be part of inclusive growth. So whether you're from Newcastle with a dodgy football team, or from London or from Ipswich or whatever, I think we want the whole country to prosper. And you know something, the whole country's been through this. So I'm not really into parochialism. I think if we can help every region up, all enjoy part of the inclusive growth. So every resident, every individual who's born in this country, who lives in this country, feels it's a great place to live.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. James, have I missed anything, my friend, before we...
Yes, today I'm on form after I've been helping my neighbour try to push her car because she can't drive. But, what intrigued me on this call was this page in the book. So in the Business Influencer, you have book recommendations. Now, I always love, I'm one of these people that you have to look in people's backgrounds when they're on calls like this. So,
Yes.
Ninder, pick one book behind you and tell us why.
Okay. Actually, there's 2 or 3 here, but I think
You've
I'll
only
pick
got
this
one. You can't be greedy. We're running out of time.
Actually, no,
Oh,
actually, I
no,
will.
because that's a good one.
Elon Musk,
Yeah. Now I picked this one. I was going to pick Steve Jobs, but actually, we've got to now think about going forward. What's the future look like?
Yes.
This guy took a punt on the environment.
You can't think forward when the guy's dead, so that's a good comment.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So you've got to look forward now. Jobs has done a brilliant, but he saw the environment. He had the vision to see the future of electric. He saw the vision that we could change the environment, the world, through the way we drive our cars.
Yes.
He saw the role of technology through PayPal and stuff. But do you know something? You asked the question earlier, where'd you go and spend it? You know, he invested it back into another venture. And the venture was electric cars. Now, his car company is valued more than any other traditional car manufacturers. Jaguar Land Rover is now going to switch its entire manufacturing production line because of him.
Amazing.
The whole world has changed because he had the temerity to say, it's not about petrol, it's not about diesel, it's about electric. So I think we need entrepreneurs that are forward-thinking, innovative, risk-taking, because without entrepreneurs and wealth makers and creators, we wouldn't have the NHS we have today. We wouldn't have the libraries we have today. We wouldn't have the schools we have today. It's people like this, people like you, people like James, Phil, James, everybody in the city. If we can all be innovative and entrepreneurial, there's only one way to go.
Ninder, I totally agree, and it's interesting. Vanessa, our local florist, also notices your eucalyptus behind you. That's good, but I have to admit, I'm a total Elon Musk, believer. Absolutely agree with everything he does. And my last saying, Phil, if I may, is something I listened to him the other day on his podcast, and he said, "Look, as an entrepreneur, now I don't class myself as an entrepreneur. I just think I've had a few lucky breaks in life, and I've worked hard, and that's it. I'm not an entrepreneur by any status." But what he said was, entrepreneurs these days think that they just need to be slightly better. And he went, that's absolutely rubbish. He went, if you want to be an entrepreneur these days, you have to be a lot better. And I thought it's really interesting what he said, because afterwards he talked about his Teslas rolling off the product line. And he went, if you're going to buy a Tesla, he went, I'm not honest, buy one at the beginning or at the end. Don't buy one in the middle. He went, because that's when it all goes wrong and we have to fix it. At the beginning, it's perfect. At the end, it's perfect.
Hardly a reference for your car, is it?
But at the same time, it's won that many awards. The guy's doing amazing, regardless, what everyone thinks about him. He's got no wit about him whatsoever. He's obviously a geek behind closed doors, and he's come out the closet in a way to show what he's allowed. But to him, wealth is nothing. He actually does. Elon Musk's books will tell you. I've not read his books. I've just watched his podcasts and interviews, and he will tell you he does not care if you had £100,000 car, a £5 million house, this, that. And he went, it's all material to him. I find it a bit weird because when you're a billionaire, if you're sat there and you can't afford your dinner on a table, and a billionaire's going, by the way, this is all immaterial and blah, blah, blah. You think, what a load of rubbish, because you go and buy it. Well, what he's trying to say is this guy would rather lose everything and start again. And I think that's what makes an entrepreneur, in my eyes.
Interesting.
You can put your whole family on risk and lose everything today because you'll start it tomorrow and you will come up with an idea. And it might take 5-10 years to come back, but you'll always come back.
James, interestingly, and Ninder, sorry, he named his company after Tesla, who still had over 1,000 patents standing when he died. But one of the main ones was about free electricity for everybody. And if what he would have built would have paid off, and this guy was legendary in his time, and obviously it was about electric, we would all have free electric now. But because the way society is, and we go back to that control and money, we didn't get free electricity. But he invented free electricity, taking it from the atoms, the molecules, the energy, the mass that is around us. Just thought I'd add that.
As we're coming to the end of the show, Phil, if Elon Musk's watching this by any chance and he wants to sponsor it, Elon, you don't need the money, we just need your permission.
Ninder, I've got to say, it's been a real pleasure to have you here with us this evening. Thank you so much. Sorry about the technical issues we had with this tech at the start.
That's fine.
But we got there.
You can blame the neighbours. It's not my fault they can't drive.
But we got there in the end.
I'll tell you what, you want to meet neighbours when you move into a new development. They've just done it completely. Because as I'm there putting bread trays underneath and gone, yeah, it'll grip. And I can smell the clutch. And I went, just stop. And I looked under the car. I went, forget it. You beached. This car's going nowhere. I thought, you've only just moved in. That's such an embarrassment. But at least all the neighbours got to meet each other.
Ninder, the Signature Awards, Birmingham. Have you got a date in mind?
Yeah, it's the first week in Feb, which is what we always do. It's always the first week in Feb.
First week in Feb, 20.
Yeah, but what we're hoping to get, we're hoping to get the London Awards and the Leicester ones away as well. But you know, as we said earlier, we have to take each day as it comes. Look at the numbers, look at the data. As most business people look at data, and data will drive your decisions. And in fact, that's what the Prime Minister said. It's going to be not decided by dates, but data. But my gut feeling, I think we're on a roll. And James, you could be right. They might accelerate the roadmap quicker, and it may be that he's really being really quite cautious, and we might accelerate. So listen, it's all positive. It's all positive.
Ninder, if somebody wants to get involved in the Signature Awards, or they want to sponsor, or they want to get tickets and take their company along, how do they find out about the Signature Awards in Birmingham?
Just go to www.natural, which is NACH, which means to dance, NACHURAL.co.uk. And if they do come and get involved, they'll see wonderful people like Mr. Phil and Mr. James hanging around somewhere at the ICC, and great people like you two will be there. And it's the good and the best and the brightest people in the region attend this event. And I'm really pleased to be associated with people like yourselves and other great talent that we do have in the region.
Well, Ninder, was that an official invite for Real Random and Raw to film live at your events around the world?
James, having what you've just done with that card, do you think I'm going to say no to you?
Well, unless I'm up winning another award, then I'm more than happy to be there presenting. But we would
you're just going to nominate yourself. Just going to get nominated, and then we'll see what it takes you.
Get nominated, but I'm sure me and Phil would love to accept an invitation to do a Real Random and Raw at the awards and really show it for life.
And Phil, this will be on its way to you.
Oh, bless you. I'm going to say, James, you can do Real Random and Raw on your own that night, because when I go to one of Ninder's Signature Awards, I'm actually getting in with the awards, and I'm going to have a drink, and I'm going to enjoy and indulge and soak up all that amazing music and entertainment and the business conversation that takes place. But we'll get somebody there filming.
Absolutely fine.
James, who's watching tonight, you're more than welcome to take over Phil's position.
Ninder, business influencer, how do people get hold of that? Where can they find that, please?
Yeah, www.thebusinessinfluencer.co.uk. It's available digitally, but I think nothing beats than a physical copy, and they can order a copy through it.
Phil, I know you don't have this, and I tell you what, as you know me, I love a joke and I love a laugh, but I have to admit, this is one of these things you pick up out of if you don't mind me saying, a business class, first class pocket in the airline, and usually people put them back. This is one you would take away because you just, or in a nice hotel, and you'd think, yeah, there's something in here. I need to have another look at it again. Lovely.
Fantastic. Look, brilliant. I can't wait to get it. I'll be taking my pictures and posting it as well once I feel the quality of those pages and see the content inside. Ninder Johal, it's been a pleasure to have you here on this Friday evening for Real, Random and Raw with myself, James Forrester, and your good self, and all of our viewers that have watched live this evening or will be watching at later points as well on many of the platforms that it streams to. Thank you to everybody for watching Real, Random and Raw every Friday, 5:30, give or take a technical hitch. Thank you very much to our very special guest, a man of so many talents. I love the musical background. Business Influencer Magazine, Chair of Wolverhampton Town Funds Board, Chair of West Midlands India Partnership, CEO of Natural Group, and many, many more. Watch out for Ninder Johal. He's going to be doing so much more. Ninder, thank you very much, my friend.
And my last plug, don't forget, I've also got a podcast called The Business Influencer. Go and have a listen to some brilliant people on there.
Lovely. Brilliant.
I'm on it in a couple of weeks, Phil. You can listen in.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll listen in. Maybe I'll get an invite one day, or I might have to get up the list a little bit more. Always things to aspire to. That's the great thing.
I'm only joking.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody. Look, thanks very much. Take care and good night.
Cheers.